So thanks everyone that is already here. Just giving a couple of few seconds to allow those that are still yet to join us to be live with us. It's always an amazing time hosting this series, and I'm already impressed with the knowledge that we've been sharing over this past month. Since the first week in month, we've been holding the Empower the Truth Summit, and every week we've been addressing a topical issue, and we've been having an awesome session with the respective trainers that we've had. And today is not going to be an exception. We believe that the more that we empower journalists and other stakeholders in this space, the higher their chance of being able to more effectively perform their roles. And I'm really looking forward to the knowledge gap that we are going to fill today, because if you look at the previous sessions that we've had, they were really quite impressive and quite responsive. And I'm looking forward to today's session, looking at how it is going to evolve. And already we have lots of participants already. So thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Paul Adepoju, and yeah, I'm the community manager for the International Center for Journalists Pamela Howard Forum on Global Crisis Reporting. And I welcome you to the fourth and final and the last webinar for this year's Empowering the Truth Global Summit. I have an amazing panelist with me, expert with me that will be leading this training. I'm talking about our friend Nikita Roy, who is joining us to lead the session on leveraging artificial intelligence. How are you doing, Nikita? And thank you for joining us today.
Hi, Paul. Thank you so much for having me. It's so great to be here again.
Yes, absolutely. It's great. And we have lots of participants live already, like I said, and I would like you to go to the chat box and tell us where you are joining us from, your name and where you are joining us from. If you can tell us what you do too, that would also be well appreciated. In addition to that, I would also like you to share tell us the number of webinars that you've attended in this series. Have you attended all the four webinars? Have you been able to only attend three, two, or is this actually your first webinar? And before I yield the floor to Nikita to start our session, we have some questions that we would like to you to answer. We'd like to get to know you a little bit. So if you look at your screen right now, a poll has popped up on your screen and would like to get some insights regarding the attendees of today's edition. And I hope that at the end of this session, you would be more informed, more empowered, more energized, more inspired, and more better equipped for you to be able to actively leverage artificial intelligence. So while a lot of, if you look at the way that artificial intelligence has evolved over the years, we would know that while some are just hearing about artificial intelligence in the last 2 or 3 years, it has actually been several years in the making, and we've been seeing a lot of its impact in the media landscape. And during the last time that we had this conversation, we focused on how artificial intelligence is being used to drive misinformation, but we are also seeing its application in media house, just like Nikita shared during the last time that she was with us, on how media houses are uniquely and creatively deploying artificial intelligence to serve their purpose. So please, if you've not answered this question on your screen, you are the one delaying us from getting everything started. We are less than half of the participants that have answered this question. So please, I still would like you to answer the question on your screen right now. Prioritize that before anything else. While waiting for more people to answer that, I want to also give a quick shout out to those that are watching this live stream on Facebook, notably the International Journalist Network's Facebook page. you are watching this live stream via the IGNet Facebook page, I also welcome you to this session. I would like you to tell us your name and where you are joining us from in the comment box of the video that you are watching right now. And if you are watching this live stream via the ICFJ Panel World Forum on Global Crisis Reporting's Facebook page, I also welcome you to this session, and I would like you to indicate that you are joining us live by engaging with us in the comment box below the video that you are watching right now. And for quick housekeeping rules, please endeavor to only use the Q&A tool on the Zoom platform for your questions. Please don't put your comments in that box. On the other side too, please try as much as possible not to put your questions in the chat box, but use the Q&A feature instead for your questions. And I always like people coming live with their questions. So if you have a question for Nikita at any point in time that you would like to ask, the way to go about it is to raise your hand, and I'm going to activate your microphone so that you can be part of this conversation. We also would like to take some questions via our Facebook platform today. So please use the chat box to ask your questions live, and I'll bring these questions to Nikita. Now we have 57% of our participants that have answered our question live, which I think is good enough for us to still get this rolling so that I don't delay Nikita uh, uh, more than I've already done. So thank you very much for joining us today, Nikita. Are you ready to lead this session?
Yes, absolutely. I am so excited. I've been seeing everybody in the chat. We have people from all over joining us, so I'm looking forward to it. We have a bunch of AI bots too, more than 10
Absolutely.
AI bots than what I counted,
I
so
saw those
totally
AI
on
bots
brand.
too.
So hi to
So
the AI bots. I'll be soon doing a bunch of webinars to AI bots. That people can then query later on. So people are already into the AI world, I see there. So I love that. I'm just gonna share my screen here. And apologies if I am lagging at any point in time. Please let me know, Paul, because I am traveling. So I am calling in from a hotel room and my Wi-Fi has been a bit iffy. But I am so excited here to talk to all of you today about AI, and especially this is going to be a very quick, brief introduction to AI, and there is so much more that we can go into. But just a quick background on who am I and what I've been doing. I'm a data scientist and a journalist, and currently I'm a Knight Fellow at the International Center for Journalists, where I am focusing on AI literacy in the news industry by doing a lot of trainings and developing curriculums. And that also makes me, another project that I'm working on is being the program lead of the AI Journalism Lab at the City University of New York, which is a 3-month tuition-free program for 20 journalists starting next month. And I also host a podcast called Newsroom Robots, which explores the role of AI in news, sharing multiple news industry leaders. We have close to 50 who have come on the podcast talking about their understanding of AI, how they're using AI in the newsroom. So if you want to hear a lot more about that, you have a bunch of episodes to catch up on. But before we get started, I want to get to know all of you a bit more. I know where you all are joining us from, but I want to know where you are in terms of your familiarity with all of these kind of like AI tools. So if you just scan this QR code, or you can go to slido.com and the code is ICFJ, you will be shown this question and just answer it. It's completely anonymous. Nobody knows what your answer is, just for us to get a gauge of where this group is so I can modify my conversations up or down depending on the knowledge level of this group that's joining us. And so, like, we're talking specifically about text generation tools in this question, stuff like ChatGPT, Claude, Google Gemini, Microsoft Copilot. Do you pay for them? Or have you never heard of any of these? Or you have tried them out but then stopped using them? Let me know. So I'm gonna wait for at least 50% of our participants over here. Um, the AI bots I need to keep in mind as well will not be voting, I guess. Over here, let's see. I do this at every webinar workshop that I do. So I like to compare where the baseline is. Um, an average of 40% of the group have usually never used ChatGPT. So if you are one of them, it's totally fine. Uh, we'll see where this group is at. Let's get to about 50 participants. Let us know if you're having any difficulties joining Slido. It's just the one question for now. The next, I will show you the next question after this. But keep this slido.com page open on your phones or laptops, however you're joining us.
Nikita, can you give guidance on those that are only joining this session on the phone? Can they have a
Okay.
direct link to click?
Yeah, so it just go to slido.com here, www.slido.com, and the code will be ICFJ. You will have to put in a code when you go on Slido, so just put in ICFJ if you're joining us on phone. Okay, perfect. Let's see. So if you're still joining, feel free to go to that link because I'll show you the next question after this. So let's see about, I'm happy to see 34%. I'm so glad to see this number at the bottom low of people who have not used ChatGPT. A lot of people have used ChatGPT in this group, and I'm happy to see that. And quite a few people as well pay for it. That's so great to see. Okay, we'll go to the next question quickly. I just want to understand where you are with image generation tools over here as well. So it's the exact same link on slido.com. Let's hide the results until it's a surprise for all of us. Okay. Let's see where people are out there. Never used, that's what I commonly see or have tried it with image generation tools. So I'm gonna just show you what the landscape is looking like. We are in a webinar that's specifically about disinformation and for fact checkers. So what's possible with the landscape is so important to know. And I think as journalists, a couple of reasons why we need to be talking about AI. First of all, I think we need to be one of the most informed citizens on AI. We owe it to our audience to be informed on AI so that we are able to do proper reporting, understand the landscape, and prepare ourselves in this AI driven world that's going to be. And second, I think there's a lot of ways in which we will be able to harness these tools. If we are able to use them and understand this correctly, they can really unlock a lot of creativity and productivity for you. And I think it's important for us to understand how these tools will work. And with your own lived experiences, you might have different ways in which these tools can help you. So those are like the two reasons why I always talk about why it's so important for us to hop on this train of generative AI for everyone to understand what these tools are and how they can help you. So I'm going to move on, keep on to this particular website, keep that open for one more second because it's going to be one more poll question. I showed you all about these image generation tools, and just to give you a quick intro into what generative AI is looking like, I'm going to show you in a quick second a split screen video of me. In one of them, this was actually a clip that was shot at the broadcast studio here in Boston, where I did a quick intro video for the International Center for Journalists tribute night last year in November. So you will see a split screen video. One of them is one that was shot live in a broadcast studio, and the other one is my AI generated avatar showing the exact same thing. And what you need to do is decide which one is going to be the real version of me. And so it's a quick 10-second video. Look at it. Is it the left or the right side of your screen that is going to switch this over to? So, are you guys ready? I'll just do this.
Disinformation is more sophisticated and harmful than ever before. I am one of the thousands of journalists working to fight it with ICFJ's help.
Okay. Slido.com and tell me which video do you think is the original. So one of the main reasons I wanted to show you this was to see how easily anybody who has access to the internet, I didn't even have to pay to create that entire AI avatar video. The ease at which I was able to create that was just uploading a 2-minute video of myself onto this platform called HeyGen, and I was able to create this entire AI avatar video. I've been showing this to like multiple places where I've been talking, and it's usually about 50% of the room will get it wrong. So I'm gonna wait for a few more people. I want to see where people over here in this room are. I'm seeing maybe a lot more fact checkers. Let's see. Okay, let's show the results. Video on the right side of the screen was 51%. This is really tight. Wow, interesting. Okay, cool. Which video is the original one? Unfortunately, we as a group we haven't gotten it right. The video on the right side of the screen is actually the AI generated one. The video on the left side is actually the original version of it. And I'm showing all of this for you to understand what is generative AI. When we talk about generative AI, we think just text generation, but it goes way beyond that. Generative AI is basically, first of all, it's a subset of AI that is generating outputs, everything from like text, image, video, music. It's learning patterns from the input data. So what you're seeing over here is it's learned from the left side of the video. It has learned the input data, and then it's gone and created that output of mine over there that mimics everything. It's mimicking the way my eyes look, the way my lips are moving. It's trying to add these like human-like features where my lips might be like, I'm licking my lips and stuff like that, but I didn't do that. It was a broadcast studio. They would have cut it out, I'm pretty sure, and made me do it again if you had recorded it. But you can see it's like everything has been mimicked. It's mimicking every single thing from all the way to the pixels, and that's how these kind of AI models work. So all of this is to say, this is really a subset of generative AI. It can lead to a lot of consequences, and there's a lot of implications that we might be seeing, especially for fact checkers. The work is going to get difficult, but in order for us to deal with all of that, I think we can also use generative AI to its power to help us unlock productivity gains to be able to combat it. And so I'm going to be talking a lot about it today. But before that, I just want to get into what AI is, because that part of generative AI that you see is really just a small subset of artificial intelligence, but it's making big noise right now. But this is really what I would say is like the big AI domains that are related to news in AI and how it's been broken down. And I'm going to show you examples for everything from like speech, vision, natural language, machine learning. I think these are words that we need to start getting comfortable with knowing what they are and knowing that they are very different from large language models. In fact, the news industry has been using AI for over a decade at this point. So AI is not something new, and it's not taking away our jobs. And this is where we need to get comfortable with it. So one of the first things I would talk about is transcribing interviews. This is directly related to speech, taking audio, converting that into text. What you can see here is Otter. I know we have a bunch of Otter bots here joining us today. That's what they're doing. They are taking everything that I'm saying, transcribing it. You get a summary. You also have this Otter chat where you can chat with this transcript. I have over here the first episode of my podcast with Matt Carolean from the Boston Globe. I use Otter for my transcriptions, for all of my podcast episodes. Why I use it mainly is for the chat feature, is because I can go back and forth with it and chat. I had Dalia Hashim from Partnership on AI join me on one of the podcast episodes, and this is one of the ones I always use an example because usually have to, she had listed like 9 different questions in the conversations that we should be asking and thinking about when we are getting AI vendors, onboarding AI vendors, or like vetting them. And she had given me a list of like 9 different questions that we should be talking about. And I was like, this is amazing. And I wanted to use it for something that I was writing. And so I just went to Otter Chat and I was like, what are the 9 questions that Dahlia said that we should be asking AI vendors? And it listed everything, all the 9 questions, pulled it out perfectly. But I would say all of this you can do if you were the person interviewing, and then you know exactly what AutoChat is doing and giving you the correct information. You also know the questions to ask because I was there for that interview. I know exactly how it happened. But this is one of the biggest use cases for us, I would say, is transcribing interviews, transcribing any speech to text and being able to chat with it as well. The next thing is converting news articles to audio. What you see over here is from the Wall Street Journal. They have been having these features where you can listen to an article. So there are tools like Speechify, 11 Labs, where it actually can clone your voice as well. OpenAI has a text-to-speech API. It can turn any text into very natural sounding voice over audio. The era of very robotic sounding voices is almost to the end right now. You're having very human, natural sound voices that can be that people are using. So this again is helping us unlock our content into a different format. Not everybody has time to sit down and read an article, but they might be on the go and they want to listen to it. And now we are getting them to read our articles and repurpose our stuff into multiple different formats. And that's where it's really, really helpful. Another one is talking about image recognitions for searching photo archives. So the Associated Press last year introduced an AI-powered image search that allows users to search beyond just metadata. So what do I mean by that? Here on the left side, you can see this is what the regular search of AP looked like. I had put in the exact same thing that said, people cheering New York Yankees. That's the photo I was looking for. I only got 2 results, and frankly, they weren't even that good. But with AP's newsroom, what it was doing over here, it was matching with the metadata. So if people were saying people cheering New York Yankees, the metadata had to have something related to that, otherwise it would not show up. And as a result, not everybody was having, there were only 2 photos that matched it. But with the AI-powered image search, what is happening is the AI model is able to look at all of these photos, understand them, and then be able to match it with your query. And so it's like they're having their own set of eyes. It's beyond just metadata. So when I asked people cheering New York Yankees, it gave me almost 2,000 results. That's like exponential amount of photos that I had access to now as an editor to look through. And all of them were like pretty great photos compared to what I previously got. So again, we have this huge archive collection, especially of photos. And how can we get access to the exact photo that we want, the exact article that we want, to be able to repurpose that in a different format? And this is where AI is helping, AI image search especially is helping wires like the Associated Press. Another one is, again, talking about this computer vision, the ability for a machine to be able to read a photo and understand that. And this is what the New York Times did. They created a digital archive. Back in 2021, they built out a tool that used computer vision that allowed them to take about 10 million articles that were in print and converted that to web. What you can see over here on the left is like a schematic representation of how an AI model is looking at a New York Times newspaper, because everything in usually like the newspapers, it's all structured. You have a subheading, you have those paragraphs, you have the images. So they programmed the AI model to understand where the headlines are, where the subheads are, where the paragraphs are. And then you can see over here, this exact thing from print was automatically converted to text. And they were then able to create 10 million articles to the web. essentially what they did was preserving history. They were able to convert all of those hard work of journalists that was done during the print era and put them to the web so that we could preserve the work that has been done for centuries later that we can go back to. And that's where, again, computer vision and AI has been helping the news industry. And this is, again, another thing about what the Associated Press has been doing. It's auto-generating articles from data. So this concept of robots writing is not new. This was actually one of the first things the AP did back in 2014, where they were using a different form of AI, which I need to clarify. It's not generative AI, and I would highly suggest nothing from generative AI should be used in this out of a purpose. What the Associated Press did was a different form of an AI technique called natural language generation, and they used it for their corporate financial earnings report, which allowed them to go from 300 every quarter to close to 1,007. That's an exponential amount, again, of coverage of companies that are being done. This also allowed journalists then to not just be writing the same type of article, which was just again and again, just like a repetition. There was nothing new that they were adding to it. Now those journalists could go out and focus on more analysis, figuring out if there was anything, an anomaly that they can go and investigate further. And again, it led to higher coverage of companies, which means more data was out there, more stories were out there. But the way in which this happened is technically a bit more further, because it's very important to understand what natural language generation is and why this happens, because this exact thing has been done for a lot of data like financial earnings report. It's been done for housing, it's done for sports, it's been done for COVID data. What you see over here is kind of like a rule-based way in which they have to understand all of this data that's there. And the AP journalists actually created a bunch of templates of all of how these corporate earnings report news stories should look like. And it's like game of Mad Libs, basically. It looks at if, based on the corporate earnings report, if Apple's net income was high or low, if the earnings per share were high or low, what the revenue was like. And based on all of that, here you can see if this rule is true, this is how kind of like the rest of the text should be written like. And with that, it's so again, a human journalist was part of that. They are the ones who wrote the entire structure for all of the articles, and then based on how the exact data, the structured data was giving you up or down, automatically there were rules to decide what that story should look like and how those sentences should be formed. And this is how they have programmed to write articles. And this is very different from generative AI, where generative AI, as we'll look at later, just can make things up because it does not have this sort of structure. A lot of the Associated Press and everything are using these articles to go straight to publish. However, for generative AI, nothing should go straight to publishing. And we'll get into that a bit more later. The next example of how AI is being used in news is automatic source detection. So this is an example of the American Press Institute, where they leverage natural language processing to have computers be able to read their stories and then identify the people who have been quoted or attributed and the particular categories that they are in. In the news industry, we're talking a lot about making sure that we're having diverse sources, but how are we tracking it and making sure we're reaching our goals? And this is one tool that kind of helps news companies do that. So as you can see over here, it reads all of their stories and says, okay, during the December 2020 collection period, how many white males. You can see over here, this news company had no Native American representation at all. It only had one Asian female. And you can see just like how many females were quoted less compared to males. And this is just something that can keep journalists more accountable when they are looking at sources for their stories. And then this is an example of how AI is being used on the business side of news. At the end of the day, news is a business, and we have to optimize on making sure that we are able to get subscriptions when people are most likely to subscribe. And that's what this tool does. It's called Sophie, which was developed by the Globe and Mail, which is Canada's leading newspaper. And it allowed newsrooms to have a dynamic paywall access by being able to predict when and which story would a user be most likely to pay for in order to access. So if I'm somebody who is into a lot of tech stories and there's a story about OpenAI that comes and they suddenly put a paywall, they know that they will put a paywall there because I'm most likely to read that based on my past reading habits. But if there's a story about New York Yankees and I have never even lived in New York and I'm not at all into sports, they have an idea about that, so they might let me read that for free. So again, instead of like an editor deciding which stories to paywall, it's based on what our past reading habits are so that we can maximize on when a person is able to subscribe the most. And as a result, making sure we convert more subscribers and help the business over there. And finally, in that same realm of like personalization, another thing that we're seeing is these personalizations of newsletters, homepages based on people's interests. So here I have examples from the New York Times and the Washington Post, who are using recommender systems to create a tailored news content in these like for you email newsletters that they are sending out. So if you are, again, somebody who's into politics a lot, if you have missed stories that were there in the politics section and maybe they were not in their homepage or in their other political briefings, they could pop up in your for you newsletter that are for you, and then you can then look at that. Again, we are moving towards a more personalized front towards news. And I think that's where the biggest gains are for AI, especially. We are living in a world where AI is powering everything. It's powering your Amazon purchases, your Netflix shows, everything is personalized for you. They tell you what is recommended for you based on your past viewing habits. And again, the same thing is what people would expect from in these kinds of from us as news companies. I say news aggregators are doing this really well. Stuff like Apple News, Google News, they are doing this very well. I go on to Apple News because of how personalized it is for me compared to any other news company. And so like we have to think a lot more about on the personalization front, how are we going to be tailoring our news content so that we are going from the one-to-many model that we are, how do we go from a one-to-one model? Because that will lead to a higher circulation of our content to people who might not be seeing it and being able to get them to subscribe more because of that value add that we give them. So all of this to come to say is that was just all about AI, how it's being used. But now I just want to get into specifically what large language models are. All that we spoke about was all of the different subsets of AI that have been used in news, but now I'm going to get specifically into generative AI and what that is, and large language models specifically. These are extremely large models. It takes a lot of time, money, technical resources to get to train these. That's why we are only seeing some of the biggest companies do this, like Microsoft and Google. But what is really groundbreaking about them is that they are trained on understanding language so that it can read the text that you input and it can chat back with you. But the way it's able to do that is all because it's trained to predict what the most likely next word is. And so if you see something like this, like my favorite animal is a, what's the first word that comes up in your mind? The next thing is, it's most likely going to be some sort of an animal, right? Like a dog, a cat. This is what the model is predicting behind the scenes. It says my favorite animal is a dog, and this is actual model predictions that are showing based on what the entire large language model has trained on. So they have trained on everything that is there on the internet and more. We actually don't know what their exact sources are because these companies are not revealing what data they have been trained on. But from what we can see is, based on everything that they do, all that they do is predicting what the next word is. Think of it like autocorrect on steroids. And it's just doing that automatically. When you go on to say Gmail or Google, is telling you what the next word would be, and autocomplete, sorry, not autocorrect, it's autocomplete on steroids. That's what it's doing. It's completing the next word, but doing that one after the other. And that goes to my main point, is that these large language models are language generators and they are not knowledge generators. That's how we need to be thinking about them. They are language generators because all that they do is train to predict the next word. They do not pull out knowledge. They have knowledge. They have been trained on a lot of things. So they might be experts in biology or something like that, but they can make stuff up because all that they're doing is predicting what the next word should be based on what input data they have been fed. This leads to a lot of different issues. But that's also why I think us as journalists, us as the news industry, are going to be so much more in demand because we are in the business of knowledge creation. In order to power models like this, there needs to be a human component that is going out, being able to pull out sources, connect with people, have that human value that leads to knowledge generation and preserving history. That's what the news industry does. That's what we are in the business of. And that's where our real value add is. These large language models can help us get to that point by being able to help with the language tasks. And second, there's also a good and a bad use case for large language models. We need to know when to use it and when not to use it. If you are going to be using it for a task, always think, are you using it for a language task or a knowledge task? What I mean by that, are you using it for writing a social media post based on a news article, or are you just going to it and telling me, give me 10 different sources to talk about AI? And that is a completely wrong use case to do it. If you are going to ask it for like research of like, tell me 10 different sources, if you're going to ChatGPT 3.5 and asking a question like that, that is a wrong use case for large language models because you are focusing on a knowledge-based task, and that's where it will struggle. And it will just be predicting the people, and you will not be getting the right answers there. So I want to get into the risks of using large language models first, because we need to know what we have to do to prevent this. And the first thing is, because it is trained to just predict the next word, that's why hallucination occurs. It's when an LLM just like makes things up that aren't true, they don't make sense, because of that prediction factor to it. And the second thing, the second big problem with large language models is called memorization. This is when a large language model just can repeat or it remembers the text it has been trained on. So if it's something like a unique text, or sometimes we also still don't know, there's a lot of research that's going into this problem, because if you put sensitive data into a large language model, there is a risk that that might come out in some other output. And so that's why that's one of the risks of using large language models, because it has the capability to memorize, but we still don't know why it's happening. Also, one of the biggest issues with that is that it could spit out copyrighted content. That's one of the crux of, at the heart of the issue of the New York Times lawsuit against OpenAI and Microsoft, because they were able to produce, those models were able to produce verbatim New York Times content. And the reason that happened was because of a technical flaw in large language models, which is memorization. Because the New York Times articles would have been quoted and put in so many different places, those were Pulitzer Award-winning articles that were being verbatim produced. They might have been in so many different places, so it came up in their training data a lot. Plus, that is something that would have been a very unique way of writing that was there. So the large language model just sucked it up and it remembered, and it was able to produce copyrighted content. And what does this mean for us? And what should we not do with these kind of large language models? So first of all, don't use it like Google. This is not Google. This is a language generator. At its core, a large language model is only predicting text. Don't use it like Google. There are certain tools that you could help to assist you with Google, and I'll get into that later, but this is for the foundational model. If you're going to ChatGPT 3.5, don't use it like Google. Second, assume every single response you get are factually incorrect. Like you have to fact check anything that you get from any generative AI tool, even if it is connected to the internet or however it is. Finally, don't put any private or sensitive data into this, because again, because of the memorization problem, it can spit things out. And finally, don't publish anything without checking for plagiarism. If you don't, first of all, don't use these to go straight to publish. You need to have an editorial component. You need to have a human judgment. You need to be able to work with these models and add your own input. But if you ever do, you might be accidentally having some sort of copyrighted content, and then that liability will fall on you as the user, on you as the journalist using it. So just a quick overview of what the top conversational AI tools are. We have OpenAI from ChatGPT. There's Microsoft has Copilot, which is powered by OpenAI. So it's basically the same model. Gemini has its own model, Google. And then we have Claude from Anthropic. And I actually bounce around between all four of them because I think all four of them have different strengths. Currently, my top favorite is actually Claude from Anthropic. But ChatGPT just has a lot of different features that I really like. And so I'm going to get into also quickly about why this generative AI has become a huge thing is because based on benchmark testings, it's being able to perform on some of the like top AP SATs on par with humans. And that's where it's also questioning the education system. But at the same time, it's showing how it's able to keep up with how humans are performing. And one of this is a study that had come out from the Boston Consulting Group. They did last year with researchers from Harvard Business School. And they showed that they were able to raise real work performance. So they had taken a cohort of about 750 of their consultants globally and put them in this experiment where they had given one group access to GPT-4, which is the most advanced large language model that's out there, and the other group did not have access to it, and they gave them a bunch of tasks. They were able to see that the people who had access to GPT-4 were able to do 12% more work. They were 25% faster in the tasks that they were doing, and they produced about 40% higher quality work than those who did not have access to GPT. And so from a business standpoint, it's raising real work performance. And then finally, it's also helping a lot of the low performers. What you see over here is people with a baseline task without GPT-4, the low performers had about a 12%, the high performers performed on average 12% better than the low performers. But then when you gave access to GPT-4, the low performers were on par with the high performers, which is a huge win, especially from a business standpoint, if you're able to level out your team, especially between low performers and high performers. One thing to note, they actually saw the high performers did not increase that much and did not get that much benefit from it compared to the low performers. But as a team, you can level the playing field really. And so I want to quickly get into 10 ways I think that you can use generative AI tools as a media professional. So first of all, generating headline suggestions and SEO metadata is one of the quickest ways. I have here a free tool that is available on Slack. It's called YesEO. It was developed by Ryan Restrepo. He's a Reynolds Journalism Institute fellow over here in the US. And what you can see over here is you just have to put in your story. It can generate headlines ideas with you for GPT. It can give you all of these SEO description ideas. We need to be able to produce a bunch of things, and there's so many deadlines in the newsroom. This is just a way for you to just brainstorm and help you sometimes get through to what suggestions for headlines or like the SEO description, especially. Just have something written so that that can get out quicker. Next one is summarizing information from PDFs. You have to do a lot of research probably. You have multiple different PDFs and you need to figure out which one you want. Which PDF might have your answer. So what I'm over here showing is about a 40-page PDF document about the state of the education system. It's a report, and then I uploaded this onto ChatGPT, and this is all with ChatGPT-4, by the way. I was able to then quickly ask questions and get a summary of what this PDF is about without even reading through it. And then again, I can go back and forth and ask questions. So now I'm like, okay, what are some of the key trends in student achievement and attainment? This is like based on all the questions that the answers that I read. I can go back and forth and see if it's there. And then again, it's giving me all of this. Again, I will not use this straight into my article if I'm writing. I would go into the PDF. I got of these answers and I'm like, okay, this is the PDF that I want. It has the information that I need. I would go and say post-secondary enrollment, it's saying 3.2 million high school completers who graduate in the first 9 months. I would just do a quick Command F, basically a Control F in your PDF document to make sure that this is there, and go and find that specific paragraph and make sure it's there. Because even with this, when you give it a source document, again, what it's doing at its core is predicting. Sometimes it can just mix things up, it can misunderstand stuff. So it's very important for you to go back to the source and figure out where the information is from. That's journalism 101. The next thing is we can also create charts to visualize data. So what you're seeing over here is you can create a bar chart. I'm saying create a bar chart for four-year public colleges by race and ethnicity in Massachusetts. And then automatically you can see a whole bar chart. I just copy pasted data that too. I didn't have to do anything in like a Google Sheets or anything like that. Just copy pasted data, and automatically you can see a bar chart that now you can embed it. It's actually interactive. You can embed it into your website. There's a whole screen. You can edit the colors, you can change things up, but instantly I had something that I could go and just like visualize my data. Another thing, this is with Google Gemini. As I said, I bounced around between all those 4 tools that I showed you. You can chat with YouTube videos over here. I can go back and forth with all kinds of questions from this. So this is a YouTube video about NVIDIA's address, and I was able to see what was discussed in this video. I can go back and forth and maybe even tell me like story ideas just based on a particular video. You can go into a lot of things by using just a YouTube video as your source with which you want to then have a conversation with. Next, and I think this is one of the most exciting parts of generative AI in general that we're going to see, is the ability for generative AI to be able to analyze data sets. What you see here is ChatGPT's advanced data analysis feature. I have uploaded it was almost half a GB file, CSV file, about the traffic vehicle collision data in New York City. And I uploaded that, I zipped it up, uploaded it, because you can only upload a maximum size of 100 MB over here. But what happens at the back end, and this is very different from the language generation part, it does language generation. It also does code generation. So it can write code. So as you see over here, it's analyzing data by writing the exact same code that a data analyst would be writing. The difference over here compared to languages with code, it's very, it's either works or it doesn't work. Your code will either run or it doesn't run. If it runs, then you see an output. If it doesn't run, the model goes back and it's trying to understand how to write this code again and again until it's able to give you an output. So usually the likelihoods of things getting wrong, it might misunderstand what you're saying, but that's why it's so important for you to just like help with, if you're working with a data journalist, it's very easy to quickly get some sort of like an understanding of this data that you're working with, how it's working, and analyze it because of the code that they write in the background. And so this is something that I use a lot because I uploaded this vehicle collision data set from New York, and I told it to analyze and give me ideas for what analysis I can do. And it was like, okay, you can do like monthly trends, borough analysis, time analysis, vehicle types, a bunch of different things. And then I can just keep on asking data questions in plain language, and it's producing this sort of like pictures, graphs. These are all things that I would be writing in Python in order to analyze this data set. And I was actually talking about this particular example at the City University of New York last year when I was doing a workshop, and I had a data journalist come up to me at the end, and we had done a whole demo on this particular data set. And he told me that what I showed them in 10 minutes in that demo was something that he spent a whole day working on this exact data set. And because of like so many issues, like the code issues that go on and everything when you're doing it, it takes time to clean the data. But because ChatGPT is able to write code at like superhuman speed, and then if something is not working, it tries again and again, you're able to see it work so quickly over here. And then finally, another way in which you can use these models, you are able to upload images into stuff like ChatGPT, Microsoft Copilot, and then ask them to do something based on that. So what you see over here is I uploaded a promotional graphic of my podcast episode, and I said, write a brief alt text for this image to post on Twitter. Now, here you can see a beautifully described alt text. We oftentimes don't have alt text in our social media posts, or even if we do, they are like one line descriptions, one word, two words. They're not that great, but we need to know that those are people who are not able to see our pictures and images are also our audience, and we need to be able to cater to them. And that's what we're able to see over here, that they are we can quickly create great alt text that could be used for all of our social media posts. And then finally, this is another tool that I would suggest using if you are trying to use generative AI for research, and that is Perplexity. It's a chat-based search engine. So I am talking about like what these very tough big questions of like, what are the consequences of using copyrighted material to train AI without permission? It gives me a great answer over here, as you can see. But what's really interesting that I find is that, okay, I need to double check every single sentence. That's something that is not possible with like the baseline ChatGPT 3.5 models that you might see. But over here, what you're able to see is for every sentence, it gives you a citation. So this is number 2, and I can just click on it and it will take me to the exact website that it was getting this quote from. And so I can read it and double check if they have, first of all, understood that material correctly, has it hallucinated, and what the source is. We have to go back to what we have to do all the time is double check the information that we're getting from these chat-based search engines. But if you're doing like a quick exploratory research, it's super, super helpful to be using these. Tool is Toolsys, actually. I like Tool is because actually does is looking at the entire web, but what tools like Consensus does is they are looking specifically at research papers. So if you are fact checking a particular scientific kind of question, like does creatine help build muscles, you can quickly ask this question over here and then look at a bunch of studies. You're able to see whether it is like it's a what type of a study was it, it's highly cited, they are automatically doing all of this in the background, what the population was, what the sample size is, what the outcomes are, all in a click. With just a line of text, you're able to gather that information, so that you know if you're fact checking a particular kind of like scientific statement, you have the supporting data to get that, and then you can go forth and like read that entire research paper to make sure it's correct. But again, on a snapshot, it's giving you a lot more information. Similar to this tool is a tool called Elicit. What I like about Elicit is actually, apart from that, if you want to compare a bunch of different research studies and then be able to quote maybe a couple, you're able to do that over here. You can see you have all of the studies that are related to the topic you're looking at, all the summaries, all the main findings from them, what the methodology would look like. And see, at a glance, I can see like 3 of those papers didn't even have a methodology because they were more conceptual papers. But then I was able to find the papers that had a methodology and I could go and click on it. So this just saved me so much time. If I had to go onto Google Scholar, click every single paper and then see, oh, this is not for me, this is not for me. But here, at a glance, I was able to compare a bunch of different papers about that particular topic and see whether they were meeting my criteria or not. And then this is another one of my favorite tools called Oasis. What I use it for is being able to voice your ideas and then just letting AI transform them into text. As I say, I think the way is in using these AI tools and thinking about generative AI is kind of like your brainstorming partner, kind of a way in which you are using it to process your thoughts and getting that across quicker. So one way to do that is by, I'm somebody who likes to just verbalize my thoughts, and getting that into text is way easier if I'm having a tool like Oasis where I just speak into it. So I could just speak into it and it could convert that into like a blog post. You can see an outline here, a professional email, summary, whatever you want. There's a bunch of different things you can look at it. What I usually use it for is actually sometimes like emails. If I have to write like in-depth emails, I would just like voice my thoughts in my responses while I'm just like walking around and not chained to my desk. And it would completely, based on the text based on everything that I've said, would just draft an email, and all I would need to do at the end is just like edit it, and then be able to send it. The same thing can be done for so many different things. I actually use it a lot for like to-do lists. At the end of it, that's also a feature for you to do a to-do list. So at the end of like major meetings, I just like usually just sit down with Oasis and like talk about all of the different next steps that I need to do, what was discussed and everything. And Oasis is able to quickly give me a quick outline and a to-do list that I need to do, and I can just like plug that into my meeting notes and my and that could help me. So again, there's a lot of different ways in which these kind of like AI tools can help you with your knowledge and help you on the language generation aspect of it. It's all the language tasks over here that you're seeing that I'm talking about that it's helping you with. Don't go to ChatGPT and ask it to write you a news article. That is not the use case for it. It's to help you in all the different areas in your work, so that you can focus on what you are good at. And I want to quickly show you what's possible with image and video generation tools, because this is a disinformation focused webinar. I want to talk about where the landscape is so that you are aware of what is possible and how easy it is to manipulate stuff. There are two sides to it. People can manipulate everything, and the bad use cases, the bad actors are going to propagate disinformation. But we can get into that later. But I also think there's a lot of like good use cases to help with creativity in different newsrooms for like image and video generation tools. And we need to be talking and exploring that a lot more. But here's what is possible currently in Photoshop. Photoshop has its own generative AI model. It's called Adobe Firefly. And what you're seeing over here is generative fill. All I have to do is circle what I want in the photo and what I want changed. And automatically I'm able to add yellow road lines to it just by typing it. Now you have generative fill and you made this full landscape picture, change the dimensions of it. And here you have, you completely change the background just by circling stuff, adding, describing what you want. You want a red arrow sign, it generates a red arrow sign. You can completely manipulate an image any way you want by just dragging, dropping, and describing what you want. It does not require sophisticated Photoshop skills anymore. You've created an entire lake in this picture. With generative AI fill, you're able to add the northern lights over here, different versions of it that you want. You can create these very realistic images from here with tools like Adobe Photoshop, and it's all built into them now. This is now Adobe Firefly for video. Again, how quickly things are able to, you can change this to a cool morning, change it to golden hour. Like this is all by text that you're able to do that. There are a lot of use cases, I would say, for stuff like this, like adding transcript to videos. I would say for newsrooms, you want to get accessibility is a focus. You want to get transcripts on all of your videos that you're putting out on social. You're able to do that. Here you're able to find B-roll just by the single shot of video. It's able to create this B-roll. This is all generative video that they're able to do. And so this is just different ways in where the video landscape is right now. Over here, you can see an entire storyboard has been created by Adobe Firefly just with a script that was given, all of the shot details, everything that is there. So there's a lot of advancements that's happening in the video generation space. And then finally, this is another tool called Runway ML. What it allows you to do is it allows you to select specific areas of an image, and then as you can see, it's setting them in motion. You can make this boat now move, and it's an image. You can make this truck move towards you. Any sort of movement that you want to add to an image is now possible with Runway ML, and there's just so many advancements. We have OpenAI Sora that is coming out with just a prompt. You can create all of these different types of videos, but it goes even further than that, taking from images and just changing videos just by text. And that's it for me. I'm happy to take any questions. If you want to learn how AI is being used in media, you can go to newsroomrobots.com. We have a podcast, and we are also launching the Newsroom Robots Academy, thanks to ICFJ. And so you can scan that QR code for a link to sign up to our waiting list to know how to use AI to help you with to be more productive and be more creative in how you can use generative AI tools in your work. And with that, Paul, I'll open to questions. I know there might be a lot of questions, so I've kept a bunch of time for that.
Thank you very much. We do appreciate that. Thank you for, I'll start with thanking you for the practical examples, for the case studies, for the tools and resources that you've shared. And while Nikita takes, oh, you're already done. I wanted to give you some minutes to drink your whatever. I think that is done already. We have I would let's take the few questions that we can take live. So please go straight to the point. Make your questions as concise as possible so that as many people as possible can ask their question live. So I'll start with Ajibola Hamzat. Ajibola Hamzat, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nikita. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, I
Yes, we
can.
can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. So thank you again. So my question is, how do you know when somebody is using generative AI to tell a story? I mean, you said ChatGPT is meant not to generate knowledge. So when you have a journalist using that to generate knowledge and produce a news report for you, how do you detect that?
Okay, so I think the way in which we are thinking about generative AI, if people are using it to write an article and helping them to write an article, there are tools out there that helps you detect generative AI text, but I think they are not effective and they are not the way we should be going. What we should be doing is going back to, again, journalism 101. We are verifying and fact checking every single thing that is in an article. If you are getting an article from a journalist, you need to double check all of the sources. Where did they get that from? Did they go and get that from ChatGPT? That is not a source. Did they go and get ChatGPT, or maybe they went to Perplexity and they got a particular source and then they double checked that the particular comment or a particular stat from there and they included that in their article? That's okay. I'm okay with that. Did they then use ChatGPT to help them write that article in a better way, or they framed to help them frame their lead maybe? That's okay. Again, it's okay to use ChatGPT to help you draft an article, to help you again with the language sides of writing an article. It's not okay to use ChatGPT for the knowledge purposes where you just use it without even fact checking it, and that's where that's the distinction that I would be drawing for journalists. But it comes back to you as an editor. Go back to like the 101 of what we do. Fact check every single source.
Thank you very much. Palve, you have the floor. Your mic, Shubhagin Palve, we've activated your mic. While waiting for Palve, we can also take Rabi Raj. Rabi Raj, are you ready to talk?
Yes, thank you, Paul. Thank you very much for the opportunity. And Nikita, thank you very much for your informative presentation on the possibilities of AI in media. I'm from Nepal. My name is Ravi Raj Baral, and our journalism history is like 125 years. And the newspaper is called Gorkhapatra, from where our history started. And we are digitizing all the past copies of this newspaper, but that's in Nepali language. Yes, we can work with AI, but how do you see the problem of language in other languages and other part of the world rather than English or dominant languages? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for that question. That's a really, really important question that you're talking about, because everything that I did speak to you about today is mainly for the English language. There have been advancements that have been done for languages like French, German. I've been hearing from those newsrooms, but I would say for stuff like Nepalese and I like still go to like I'm from my parents are from India. I'm Indian, and so I like go to like their regional languages and see maybe can we like converse in their regional languages, and it's still not effective. I think this is a time where we need to be talking about this, but also for you as a news company, I think this is also something that we need to be looking at with the tech folks because they have the power, they have the resources to be able to then work on language models to help with this particular problem. So I'll take the example of actually Schibsted, which is in Norway. What they have been doing is actually collaborating with Norwegian tech providers to create a Norwegian language model right now. They are not going in the whole copyright angle. They are going in the more research and experimentation phase because they know as a news publisher that they need to be focusing on creating a large language model that they can also use, and because the Western tech companies are not caring about them. So what they have done is that they have gone with a tech company and giving them access to their data so that they are able to create a large language model, and then talking about whatever the partnership route and everything would look like. So what I would tell you, if you are a publication of such a huge size in Nepal, look at the tech providers or maybe like Nepalese tech partners that you can partner with and think about collaborative solutions. We have to be collaborating in a way with these tech companies, smaller tech companies, especially for regional large language models, because otherwise they will, I mean, things will not work out, and they need to have access to data. There's just like a lot of different things, especially like for like smaller countries and languages where the people are not focusing. So I do not know of anything that is currently happening in Nepal. Maybe you can be the pioneer of that.
Thank you very much. We have again a Daniel. Daniel, are you ready? We also have a Brima Jallo. Okay. Ashraf Sharif, who among you is ready to speak? Okay, Ali is ready. Let me find Ali. Ali, you are not
Thank
ready.
you. Thank you. Thank you,
Yes.
Paul, and thank you,
Okay.
Nikita. I
Okay.
found this session very useful, especially in our Pakistan. The media is developing its tools with new innovations. And I want to ask a question, how we can know the data showing through AI is copyright? It's a big issue here.
Yeah,
Can you
exactly.
can you?
So is the if the data, just to clarify, are you talking about if they are training on copyrighted data, or you're talking about if they have if they are generating copyrighted data?
Ashraf, can you handle
I don't know
that?
if I lost
Can
you.
you? Okay. Probably you should speak generally regarding copyright in general. I think you've mentioned it, but do you have guidance and suggestions on that?
Yeah, I mean, if as I said, they have the ability to sometimes generate copyrighted data. So what I would be doing is, I think a lot of sometimes newsrooms also do this, is like running things to plagiarism checkers. Especially if maybe you're working with a freelance article or whatever, freelance writer or whatever, like you need to like make sure if you're doing like source quality control, right? In the same way, I think of these like tools like ChatGPT and stuff like just another person that I don't know. I don't know their quality, so I need to be doing my own quality control for plagiarism and stuff like that for generating to see if they have generated any copyrighted information. But the other side of like training on copyrighted data, that's like a whole other big
Yeah. Okay. Ali Afridi, you
there.
have the floor. Ali?
Uh, yes. My name is Ali Afridi, and I am from Pakistan, tribal journalist. Sir, my question is that how can we control social media nowadays? There is the time of social media. Day to day, print media and press media is going downward. So, what we will do, and this
Did we lose it?
I think so. Let's go to Daniel Mendez. We'll come back to the issue of social media in a bit. Daniel, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. Hi, thank you so much, Nikita. I'm wondering if you have any recommendations for kind of some of the generative video stuff you showed us was amazing. I'm a documentary filmmaker, but I've also done kind of short news pieces in newsrooms. And so I signed up for the with the QR code that you sent for that information from Newsroom Robots. But I'm wondering if you have any other recommendations of good places to go and see some of these potential tools or recommendations for how people are using them. Are there other good kind of resources right now that are on top of this stuff that you would recommend?
So there is one creator group that I really like. They are called AI Lemon Academy. Sachin Kamath and Diana run that together. And they are actually one of the sources of people that I go to see how AI is being used in the image and video generation space, because that's actually not my forte and I don't concentrate on that quite often, but this is where I get my information from. So that would be one place I would direct you to. But keep on top of what Adobe is doing. Adobe is doing a lot of things. They just had their Adobe conference yesterday and they came out with a bunch of releases. I'm still digesting through all of that. So maybe if you come to a webinar in a month's time, I will have all of these slides updated with new things that Adobe is doing. But they are rapidly putting out more and more information. So Adobe is another keep on top of what they are doing. I can't hear you, Paul.
That says, thank you. We go live to Esther Nakazi. Esther, how are you doing?
I'm well, Paul. Thank you, Nikita, for this very insightful presentation. I didn't really understand the imagery very well. Does somebody have to initially put in an image for AI to generate the image and make it better, or AI can actually, you just put in a text and say, generate for me an image of an African man in a garden doing weeding or something like that?
Yeah. Thanks for that question, Esther. Yeah, I didn't get into image a lot. So there are different ways in which you can use image generation tools. One way is what you spoke about just now. You give it a prompt. So you give it a text and it produces an image. You say what you want it to do, you describe it. So you can go to tools like Midjourney, you can go to ChatGPT itself, and they have DALL-E, Microsoft Copilot, all of these tools. You can go give them a sentence of what you want and it will generate an image for you. The other way in which you could do is what I was showing. You upload an image, so that I think has a lot of consequences, especially for like disinformation. Like you can take an image that was generated an image, and again it's with a line of prompt. So as you were seeing, it said a red arrow sign, and with that red arrow sign it was like just adding a sign to that picture. And so that's another way in which you can use image generation tools on top of an image that has been taken by you as a human, and then you can like add stuff to it with these image generation tools.
Thank you. We go to Suzanne. Suzanne, are you ready with your question?
Yes, John. Thank you, John, and thank you, Nikita. My name is Susan. I'm a broadcast journalist from Kenya. Actually, I have a concern, especially when it comes to image generation tools. We saw that we can generate audio from text, yeah? And as a broadcast journalist, specifically in radio, we deal with audio. So my
Susan, are you there?
Oh, did we lose her?
concern was
Oh, no.
Oh.
We'll come back to you, Susan. But please, let's quickly take some questions that have been sent in. So I go to the question dropped in by John Neri. 2 questions. Have you tried Opus Clip or any other AI tool that can select clips from a broadcast or streaming program? Which is best? Can you expand on what you said about non-generative AI? For example, which natural language generation company or tools are worth looking into?
Okay, good question. Opus Clip is great. That is there. Oh, sorry, I'm just like remembering the name. There's another tool called clap.app. Yeah, it's called clap.app. I'll put a link in the chat over here that I have done. I like it because, again, you can just do, am I able to put it in the webinar chat here? Yeah, okay. I put it, clap.app is another tool that I have used for that. What they do is they can take like YouTube videos, any videos that you want, and then convert that quickly into like TikTok reels. And it will dissect which would be the most viral posting TikTok clips and why would it be, and it like ranks them in virality score and multiple different things. So clap.app is another tool that I recommend for that. And what was the second question? I forgot.
The second question.
Oh, can you expand?
The second question is on non-generative AI.
Yeah, so non-generative AI, those natural language generation companies that are there are, depending on where you are, if you're in the US, and if you're doing, there are companies that focus on like specific beats, I would say. So there is a company called Lead AI here in the US. It focuses on local sports reporting. So they do those non-generative AI based articles that will produce a bunch of like sports articles covering all of the local sports coverage for your news website. There is also United Robots, which is another automated content producer for a bunch of different publishers use them. This is another tool that you could look into. So I'm just dropping the link into the chat for that. United Robots, and here is Lead AI if you are in the US. Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. There is this question from Terry Mazim. So is it okay to use these tools to improve the language, grammar check, etc., or to give them information and the writing style format and tell them to use that information and write an article in the given writing style and of course do fact check again?
Yeah, I think that's the way in which we would be headed towards. There are like talks about how do we like, people are thinking about like fine-tuning large language models. Effectively, what that means is like maybe you are training an entire voice and style of a news company based on their entire rich history of archive of data to be able to help with style checking the articles that are written and making sure the voice is there and all of that. So you can get them to start writing in your voice. That's all about the prompting part of it. That's what prompt engineering is, and we can get a lot more complex into it. What I did was like in less than an hour showing you an introduction to AI, but there's a lot more deeper. So just look into prompt engineering, and there'll be a lot of resources you can find on Google regarding that.
Thank you very much. Kandani, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much for this very informative information. I think the presentation itself was very good because there are lots of examples. So I think that was good. So my question is to do with the situation here in Africa. Most of us have not used a lot of these AI applications, and for several reasons. One of them is that most newsrooms, because of financial problems, I think they're not able to use AI that on subscription because they cannot afford subscription. And I'm looking at the situation that has happened with CrowdTango. I've read that it's going to be discontinued. But the truth is that most of African newsrooms have heard about CrowdTango, but they've not used it. So it's like most of us in Africa are talking about AI, but we are not living AI. That is, we are not using it. I'm looking at what has happened with CrowdTango. Like,
Okay.
how is it going to be for newsrooms like where we come from, where we have not yet used it, but some of the AI is being, discontinued. And then
I think that's a good question regarding potential widening of inequity regarding AI, and considering the fact that I think you mentioned the project by various media organizations to actually develop tools on AI for themselves. But in developing countries where the resources to actively drive these initiatives are not there. So what insights can you give regarding inexpensive but highly highly efficient AI deployment? What do you think, Nikita?
Yeah, so I think the huge power right now with generative AI is that you don't need a huge team of data scientists and programmers to work on being able to produce all of these tools. What you need is a $20 subscription to AI, to an AI chatbot, to something like ChatGPT that you and your team can be helping and working on. And there is Google no code AI. That's like a whole different like segment and lecture that I do about no code AI tools that without code, kind of like drag and drop, you can create tools for yourself and for your newsrooms. I've been seeing a lot of local newsrooms who have been experimenting on this. I think this was going to be a huge, would be leveling the playing field, especially for smaller, under-resourced newsrooms. All you have to do is be able to invest in this one tool that can help you get to do a lot more different things. And also because we're from sub-Saharan Africa, I just wanted to drop in over here a podcast episode with Gregory Gondway. I think he would be a researcher that you'd be very interested in checking out his work. I had done a podcast episode with him about how journalists in sub-Saharan Africa are using ChatGPT based on research that he had done. This came out last year, but he has a lot more research that has come out, but it would be very insightful for you. I think that $20 worth just to experiment with these kind of tools is actually a huge is quite worth it for $20 that you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very, very, I think, try it out.
Thank you very much. Pfizer, are you ready to ask your question live? While waiting for Pfizer, there is a question that I think we can quickly take. Nikita, you mentioned this move towards greater personalization of news and the one-to-one model. Okay, Pfizer, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm Faiza from Pakistan. And
Okay,
my
go ahead.
question is, what role, what role do technology and digital tools play in the fact-checking process? And what are some popular fact-checking resources available to journalists?
Thank you
Yeah,
very much. Nikita.
yeah, that's a really good question. I would actually direct you to the work that is being done by some incredible fact-checking organizations. One of them is Fact Checkiado. Down in Latin America, Checkiado. They do a really, really great job in being able to look at how identification of fact checking. So they look at for like identification of fact checking. There's also different tools that is being currently done in Duke University's lab. That's again another like AI generated misinformation. I don't know about specific AI tools that would help you in the fact checking resources. That is not one of my expertise areas, but these would be the two places that I would direct you to. I'm actually just looking because I know Pointner just released an article about how Checkiado is using fact checking, using AI for fact checking here. how fact checkers can use AI wisely. So I am dropping this in the chat. This would be a very good read for it. So look into the work that Chekiato is doing. Look into the work that Duke University Lab is doing, headed by Bill Adair. And I'm also dropping a really great episode with Bill Adair on the work that they're doing over there.
Thank you very much. So to the question I was taking, so Nikita, you mentioned this move towards greater personalization of news and a one-to-one model. Given how much discussion exists around polarization and a lack of shared narratives and understandings, what are the concerns with a trend in this direction? I'm thinking about research and reporting on radicalization pipelines, for example, through the YouTube algorithm. How much of a concern should this be for newsrooms?
Can you actually repeat that? Cut out for me a bit.
Okay. You mentioned this move towards a greater personalization of news and a one-to-one model. Given how much discussion exists around polarization and a lack of shared narratives and understandings, what are the concerns with a trend in this direction? I'm thinking about research and reporting on radicalization pipelines. For example, through the YouTube algorithm, how much of a concern should this be for newsrooms?
Very valid concern. And I think we're seeing that with how social media is currently being recommending and the personalization is over there that is leading to the radicalization that we see on all of these social media platforms. I believe that newsrooms will have, and the way I'm seeing newsrooms do it is having a very values-based system into these recommender systems that are embedded. So you are having a bit of editorial and human judgment positioning how these recommender systems would be programmed and the algorithms would be created. So some of the stories, like maybe like an editor is feeding into the recommender system, like these are important stories that everybody needs to know. And so you're positioning some stories that people should be knowing, even if they are only interested in like sports stories, for example. But also at the same time, stuff that the New York Times and the Washington Post are doing actually in their For You email newsletters, if you look at the bottom, they will tend to introduce you to a different vertical completely sometimes, and a different topic of news stories. So it's just helping you broaden your perspective. And it's not just for you about just only sports if you're interested in sports articles, for example. Also, I think the radicalization aspect of it, I think we as news companies might not be contributing to that aspect because we're not like social media companies that are having all the different, even all the misinformation and disinformation and all the news companies, everybody together in one. We are, if you are coming and going to the New York Times and you are a subscriber to the New York Times, that means you like their writing, first of all, or you are probably in line with the values of the New York Times. And so whatever the New York Times is going to keep on positioning and putting out, that radicalization is not really happening to the degree that's going to happen on a social media company. What's going to happen is filter bubbles, as they call it, like you're only showing them a particular set of narratives. But I think that can be done if with a good recommender system, if you power that with editorial judgment.
Thank you very much, Muhumuza. So I want to take a last round of live questions. So I'll allow some people to talk, whoever is able. Okay, Muhumuza, are you ready for a question?
Yes, thank you. My question actually is about originality of journalism in the future. Will won't AI kill the originality of the content in the future? How are we going to separate it? Because I see it's coming.
How can we separate the originality? Sorry, I can't hear you, Paul.
Originality, yeah. I think how can AI help us with the lines getting blurred increasingly between AI and originality? Can AI be used to still help us separate originality from artificially generated content now or in the future? So that is the question. And I would also like you to take Yongamsen if Yongamsen is ready for the question.
Yes. Hello, Paul. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Hello, Nikita. Thank you very much for that insightful facilitation. I am Nyongam Sendasi, a peace journalist in Cameroon, precisely in the armed conflict hit regions of the Southwest and Northwest. Now, posting on the YouTube, where we also want to explore to share our multimedia story on YouTube. And we also know YouTube has certain conditions where if your content is not original, that is, if your content, your video content, for example, has element of extra elements that are not produced by you, they will not, they will block your video. Your video cannot be published on YouTube. How can we handle such a situation when using AI generated video? That is the first. Secondly, I come from a part of the country where the language, in terms of the tone and the diction used, is a little bit different from classical English language speakers. Is there a possibility where AI can be customized to suit various language backgrounds in terms of local names, and diction, so that the people, the audience, can be able to resonate and understand when we use AI generated stuff?
Thank you very much for those two questions. So let's unwrap them one after another. I think there is a connection between these questions, which is the issue of originality. I think the last person's question and the question around the use of YouTube on originality. So what can you say from the different perspectives regarding originality in the context of AI?
So I think when we talk about originality and how do we differentiate ourselves from AI, it needs to be going back to what we are good at doing in journalism and what is unique and differentiates us from AI. And that is the human quality of journalism. It's being able to connect with audiences. I see AI as being a tool that would allow us to be out there in the communities more, reporting and connecting with people. And that's where the originality will come from. AI will be helping people write articles. The problem is, if you write an article as a news company, that is not copyrightable. Facts are not copyrightable. So if you write an article, another AI generated farm can go take your entire article and put that out and rewrite an entire article. So the originality that would come and why people would come to you and read is because you have that connection with them. That only comes if you are out there and reporting and creating connections as a journalist. I see this as a tool that will get us out of our newsrooms and out there in our communities a lot more. And that's where the originality part will be there, that will differentiate us from all of the other AI content farms that are out there. In regards to YouTube and stuff like that, if you are using AI generated videos, AI generated images to help, be transparent about it. The audience is going to be, I think we will be seeing a future where if people are using it, they would be okay with it because it's going to become so common, not just news. We have to understand this is the entire information ecosystem. You have a bunch of content creators and everything that we as news are now part of this huge giant information ecosystem. Everybody would be using all these kinds of AI generated videos and tools if they're out there. And if news companies are going to start using that, then we have to have a connection and conversation with our audience about it. If you are going to be using it for YouTube, make it quite clear that this is an AI generated video. You can also have guidelines maybe in your description as to why did you take that route. Let them see the thought process that has gone behind editorially that you might have had conversations with. And this goes back to building trust in news. We have to go back to the foundations of journalism. This is not a conversation about AI, really. This is a conversation about how do we build trust in news. And I'll drop a link to Trusting News. It's a project that does amazing work in how you can build trust in news, and they have a lot of guidance, especially for AI generation, and how you can deal with disclosures over there. Yep. And sorry, I can't hear you, Paul.
Yeah, sorry. Thank you. What about what I think is also the relevant question on customizing AI for different language backgrounds? Is that something that is currently technically possible to customize AI for different intonations, different ways that people speak?
Yeah, so if you're talking about tones and voices but specific to the English language, you can do that with look into prompting and fine tuning. I don't have time to get into all of these, and these are really large technical concepts, but Google them, fine tuning and prompting that can help you with like guidance with style and voice. Now, if you're talking about getting these large language models to a completely new language, that requires, again, the power for these tech companies and these resources to be able to train an entire language model on that particular languages. There's a lot of work being done on particular regional languages as well. So Google about your research about what your specific, like maybe large language model in French, and see if there's work being done over there, and see if there is another better suited large language model for you. If there isn't, again, if I'll go back to the person who from Nepal that I spoke about, we have to talk openly about who are the people, maybe in the tech or something, that we are having conversations with about developing large language models for communities that will not be having. We have to think a lot more about that. And then you as news media companies are sitting on a trove of data that can help train these large language models, so you can get involved in these processes and reap the benefits of it, and be a part of building a large language model for your language maybe. So think in those directions and think broader if you are a company that has the ability to do that.
Thank you very much. There's this question from Mohammed that I would like us to take. So I'm one of Mohammed Reid writes, I'm one of the proponents of the use of modern technology, but in the face of automated news writing and content production facilities, setting news agenda by advertisers as the media is corporate, what will be the future of human involvement? Is it not going to create joblessness in the countries where new journalists are not interested in joining the field due to multiple reasons, and the senior are exposed to capacity problems? So what do you think regarding this? I think you've mentioned it in bit when you mentioned the fact that the roles of the journalists will still continually be relevant. So do you think still going into the future, this will continue to be the case?
The role of journalism is going to continue, because I think what journalism does, again, is knowledge generation. It is documenting history as it happens. It is being able to break and create stories, get that human connection, and speak truth to power. And that's what keeps democracies alive. But I will be a realist and say that the way the news industry is right now, I think is going to change in the future. We will not be seeing things the way it is right now. I think the question about job losses is right now, especially that we're seeing in the industry, is not about AI. It's because of a broken business model for news. It's not about AI. It's about that we haven't figured out a business model since we came into the internet. We actually haven't yet adapted to a digital market. So forget about AI. But if we go back to how are we going to be doing journalism in 10 years from now, I think it's going to be looking very different. What that means for us as journalists is to be upskilling ourselves on AI. If you are a newsroom leader, especially, this entire AI revolution is about change management efforts that you need to be focusing on. It's about upskilling your entire workforce, making sure that they are AI literate. This is like a new skill that we need to be learning and being able to adapt, because if we don't use it, the bad actors are going to be using it. The people who are tech companies are going to become news publishers and they will use it. And the problem is that we are not dealing with other news publishers. We are dealing with tech companies, bad actors, or anybody else. Anybody who now has access to an internet can just take an article from the New York Times, rewrite that, put it into generative AI, spit things out quicker and faster than you can. That's the problem that we're going to be dealing with. More people entering into the news industry market and taking away market share. And so the only way for us to be able to be alive and thrive in that way is that if we are also upskilling ourselves on AI to be able to compete with the speed at which these kind of like informations will come out, and then lean into that human quality for which we are known for, of being able to connect with audience and being out there and producing and reporting on good stories.
Thank you very much. I want to take like 2 more questions. Let me see if we can still have people live. Please, I think I've given some people the floor before that they didn't respond. So let's quickly take some questions that have been sent in. So the question is this, Suzanne would like to know, as a broadcast journalist, can I use the audio generated from text? If the answer is yes, to whom do I attribute the voice to?
Should you use AI generated cloned voices for your...
Yes, yes.
That's a whole conversation that you need to be having with, I would say, your editorial team in terms of like, why would you be doing that? Again, if we are talking about a podcast that a radio show that you had a host that was doing it, and now suddenly you're like, I'll just clone that voice, and instead of getting them, you're just having a host voice and you are completely making that job disappear. That again comes into the ethics of like, why would we do that? What is the value added in that? What I'm seeing news organizations do instead is that because somebody is maybe not able to use it for like multiple different like articles, or they are not able to voice over on multiple different things, they are being able to use that like branded voice of a particular publication to do it for multiple different things. So I'm talking about expanding the plate instead of replacing what is currently being done by a human journalist. Expand, think about that way, like we're expanding what can be done to use with these AI tools. One example is also the Dutch public broadcasting. What they did was a story about stuff from a journalist's diaries. They did it in his voice because he's no longer alive, but they got consent and they had a huge editorial conversation, especially with the family and stuff, to get insights on whether they can do it. And then they used his voice for a podcast episode series to be able to create a more lifelike, more realistic version of that podcast for listening. So that's one thing that they had done. In those cases, when you're doing, again, it's a lot of conversations you need to be having editorially. Have an ethics policy. Do not do this if you do not have an ethics policy out there. You need to have an ethics policy on your website, an AI ethics policy. If you do not have that, that's the first thing you need to be doing as an organization before you even get into the AI space. And then the second thing is about the question about like, who do you attribute it to? Be very transparent. Say that this is in the likeness of exactly whose voice you used. You need to make sure that you've gotten consent, get all the paperwork for that. And then be transparent about like how you used it, like 11 Labs or whatever tool it is. Be transparent about it, but you have to give proper credit, especially to the person's voice that you have used. But again, I would talk about, if you're using stuff like AI voice, think about expanding the plate, not replacing people. That is not going to lead to anything good for us as an industry. We should not be having that replacement mindset of replacing journalists, because we still need them. We need to be able to do a lot more with the people that we have right now. I can't hear you, Paul.
Gitonga, you have the floor. Are you ready to ask your question live? I also have a Brima on the floor to ask questions. Who amongst you is ready to ask the question live? So this is the last set. If you want to ask your question live, this is the opportunity. Gitonga, are you ready?
Yes, yes.
Please
Yes,
go ahead.
Yes, my question is, I was in India some time back, and I saw a AI news anchor. So I was just wondering whether AI might replace some of the communication jobs that are currently available.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. That's a very valid question, a very valid concern. We're also seeing this over here. If you have heard of Channel One AI, Channel One AI is completely AI generated, personalized news feed for you 24/7, and it's all AI generated anchors are telling you the news. But when we think about all of them, our job's going to be lost. Being a realist, I'm unfortunately feeling like there are going to be leaders who think about things in the wrong way and think about journalism and think about this transformation and how to use AI in the wrong way and would look at replacing people. And will there be jobs lost as a result? Unfortunately, I think because of the wrong way some people might look at, and we've already seen that in some places, in some newsrooms, people would have a job loss. What we need to be focusing on and thinking about is which are the areas in which we can use this, but also let's just take a step back as an industry. We cannot approach this with fear. This is not the social media revolution, the era. We have to think about this differently. This is a whole transformation that is not happening just to the news industry. This is happening to coders, this is happening to data analysts, because it's able to generate code, as you saw. It's able to do the work of a data analyst. There are multiple industries that are facing this exact same threat. The way they're all approaching that also, there are jobs, layoffs, everything happening over there as well. We have to be really deeply thinking about the ethics of how we are using AI. But more than that, we have to upskill ourselves on AI. Otherwise, we will not even just miss the train. We will just not even be on there. We will be completely not, we won't be there because other actors will enter. So we have to think about all of these AI generated anchors and everything. There might be places for them in the news and to get to them. But we also have to look at how you will be using the human journalists that we have right now and developing that quality there.
I'd like to thank you, Nikita, for such an amazing session with you. It's always insightful reaching out to you, talking to you regarding the subject of artificial intelligence. And as usual, you've expanded our knowledge base on this subject. So I really, really want to thank you very much for your expertise and for accepting our invitation on this at this particular moment. So thank you very much for accepting us. I know you have to run, so I would like you to do you have any additional final words, or you've said it all?
Thank you so much for having me, and please feel free if you have any questions or stuff like that. You can reach out in the Newsroom Robots Academy that's there as well. And I love hearing about AI work that people are experimenting and doing. So you can find me on LinkedIn or Twitter and DM me there too.
Thank you very much, and I will give you the opportunity, so we have a second part of this session, which is about providing you insights around the grant application. The official announcement is going to happen during the week, next week. Look forward to an email in your inbox that is going to tell you exactly what to do. And if you need some tips and suggestions from me, please be on the lookout for our newsletter that you've been receiving from me consistently for the past 3 years. To be shared at the top of the hour. So I hope you're a subscriber to that newsletter. I put some tips inside it. And with this webinar marks the official last session of the Empowering the Truth Summit for this year. I'd like to know who was able to attend every session. If you attended every session this year, let me know your thoughts in the comment box. And if you are also able to share some feedbacks with us regarding how this experience has been for you, I would also welcome you to also share that experience. And based on that, I know people are asking for the presentation. Yes, we endeavor to get them across to you as soon as possible. We are also curating the videos together that you can, so you can check them out on ICFJ's YouTube page. I know lots of people asked for the videos. So please, the best place for you to get the videos for this webinar series would be ICFJ's and HygienNet YouTube pages. So be checking those YouTube pages out for the videos of that. Speaking of the end, I would also like to tell you that the forum that you love so much is still going, is going through another transition, and you'll be hearing a lot about the transition of the forum in the following week. So I hope you are on the lookout for more information regarding what is changing and the direction that we are currently taking the forum, which I expect to be exciting because we are always on the lookout to adapt our approach, our initiatives, our solutions, our messaging, and what we are doing to support journalists globally in an updated fashion. So the forum will be taking another different direction, not entirely different, but at least be heading for the chapter. So for me, a few days ago, I saw this. This was my first webinar with the ICFJ. It was on January 21st. 3 years ago was when I came on board as a trainer, and I came around to teach on health reporting. And if you go through the various stages of the forum, you would see that we've actually had it in different stages. We've had the ICFJ's Pamela Award Forum on Global Crisis Reporting, which was what we currently have. But prior to that, it was the ICFJ's Global Health Crisis Reporting Forum. And I would like to tell you that going forward, this would also be officially my last webinar in my capacity, and I hope you enjoy the next phase of what is going to come from ICFJ. I just want to thank everybody for their support and for this opportunity to be your community manager. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of your day.